What's the difference between a wet raccoon and Donald J. Trump's hair? A wet raccoon doesn't have $7 billion in the bank.
Do you want to win any of these items on your screen? If so, be sure to watch the whole video, leave a like, and comment the hidden message. And with that being said, let's get right into the video.
From legendary celebrities getting their medicine, to head honchos of certain areas, to a freaking president. Join me as I show you the top 9 best celebrity roasts. Like and subscribe, and watch this video all the way through, or you'll wake up to this creepy spider crawling on your face. Ugh. 9. Don Rickles. I know what you're thinking. Wait, Don Rickles got a roast? Do recall that the roasts have been going back as far as the 1920s. Yeah, these things are older than you think, and that means that a lot of people have been roasted over time. The irony is that Don Rickles not only got roasted, but he was one of the best roasters in the history of the business. When Dean Martin took over the roasting, Don Rickles was a regular because of his energy and stereotyping and more. People loved it. So when Rickles got his turn in the chair, people had a lot to say, including the one and only Muhammad Ali. But the best thing was kept for last when the Casey Kasem, voice of Shaggy on Scooby-Doo for decades, came out dressed like Hitler, no joke, to insult Rickles and left the stage with, "You are the only man I know who has bombed more places than I have." Number 8. Jeff Foxworthy. While it may not be the most popular of the bunch in the eyes of many, there is no doubt that the roast of Jeff Foxworthy came at the perfect time. Foxworthy was headlining the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, and it was one of the most popular things that Comedy Central had ever done. So of course they were going to roast Jeff Foxworthy as much as they possibly could. And oh yeah, they did. One of the biggest ironies of this was that his particular roast featured not only some of the famous comedians, but also his Blue Collar Comedy Tour buddies who had no problem ripping into him. Such as Bill Engvall saying, "We're here today to celebrate the worst actor in the history of television." A reference to the Jeff Foxworthy show that was, well, let's just say it was bad. Larry the Cable Guy also had a good zinger with, "Before he died, Christopher Reeve was watching the Jeff Foxworthy show, so he got up and changed the channel." The humor was very redneck, and that's what many people liked about it. And many comedians made fun of the fact that Jeff got his success without ever being dirty in his humor, to which one comic replied, "Thanks for effing it up for the rest of us." Number 7. Joan Rivers. We could do a list on the things that people said about Joan Rivers during her roast, and the longtime insult comic wasn't one to hold back herself. When she entered her own roast, she arrived with a bunch of Oriental children and said, "Brad and Angelina are having a sale." Wow, she still had it at the time. Ironically, a lot of the roasters weren't her friends or even close allies, but that made it all the better in the eyes of many, because this was the younger generation rising up to diss the legend that was Joan Rivers. And some of the people in the audience were more Joan's age, which got one of the comics to go, "I don't know if I should sling insults or call bingo numbers." True. But what might be the reason that this particular roast got so high on this list was that when it was time for Joan Rivers to show up and deliver the final blow, she did it like she was in her prime. She even went as far as to chug a whole bunch of alcohol before going up to the podium and slapping Kathy Griffin for her antics. It was staged and you could tell, but it worked. Number 6. Hugh Hefner. I mean, who didn't have something to say about Hugh Hefner? He's the man behind Playboy, the thing that young men used to try and steal or borrow from their fathers so that they could see a naked woman for the first time. And he had that job for decades. Think about it. Really, if it wasn't for the internet, this man would still be one of the most desired men in the world in terms of dream jobs. Oh yeah, when it comes right down to it, there's a lot to roast Hugh Hefner on. And a lot of people took a lot of shots at him because of his job, which was basically being a pimp, as well as being old and needing help to, get it up. As Gilbert Gottfried put it, the only way Hugh Hefner can get stiff is through rigor mortis. Or, from a more historical perspective, Hugh Hefner is so old, his first condom was made out of bark. All in all, it was an aptly timed roast that showed how anyone relevant could be roasted for their crimes, which is a perfect segue to number 5, Larry the Cable Guy. Once in a while, a person comes around and gets fame in such a big and grand way that you can't help but wonder, how did he get so famous? That statement is very poignant in the roast of Larry the Cable Guy. At one point, he was the lowest member of the Blue Collar Comedy Tour. Heck, he got his name because he was a recurring character on a radio show. But through his personality and comedic force, He became the biggest star of the four in certain respects, including getting many big-name films done with him, like Health Inspector and Witless Protection. Oh, they were dumb as heck, but he made bank off of them. And the guests that were there had a fun time making fun of Larry and his rise to fame. They even had Marcy Brady and Toby Keith be a part of the show. How did that happen? The world may never know. Of course, the Blue Collar Comedy Tour guys were there and had the times of their lives ripping their friend, including Jeff Foxworthy, who may have had the best line of the night with, "People asked me why I wasn't in Delta Farce, and it's because I read the script. Get her done." Number 4, William Shatner. Kirk to Enterprise, beam me up to the roast of me. Oh yeah, this one deserves its high spot, mainly because of the quality of the roasters and the hilarity over the very eccentric and unique career of one William Shatner. He started off small, got Star Trek and TJ Hooker, made a legendary performance of Rocket Man once, and he's been doing his Shatner thing ever since. 2 members of the Star Trek family were present in George Takei and Nichelle Nichols. And Nichelle definitely got some licks in on the man who kissed her and made history via the first on-screen interracial kiss. This night may have also been the first time people got excited about perky Betty White talking dirty. We all know Shatner's nuts, but George has actually tasted them. You could argue that their phasers were set to stun, but in the end, it was a fun roast of a TV and movie legend who definitely got what he deserved and then some. Number 3, Donald Trump. Oh boy, who wouldn't want Donald Trump to get another roast right now, just so people could lay into him for his time as president? Seriously though, when Donald Trump did his roast on Comedy Central, it was before his first attempt to run for president. He bowed out of his first run after low numbers and wanting to stick to the private sector for a little while longer. And he even noted in the roast that he donated all the money they paid him to do the roast to charity. So at least there's that. And the roast itself was funny as it had some of the unusual cast of characters, as well as some interesting choices like Snoop Dogg and Mike the Situation from Jersey Shore. But for me, having watched this, the best part is when deaf comedian Marlee Matlin was doing her dirty jokes and her interpreter leaves her high and dry, only for Gilbert Gottfried to arrive and go, "I will translate for you." And he subsequently goes off on a rant about Donald Trump and European women, and completely ignores her until he turns to her at the end and goes, "Did I translate that right?" Yes. Yes, you did, Gilbert. And even the president can't put that over a wall. Number 2, Bob Saget. The roast of Bob Saget was a curious one and a hilarious one in all the ways that matter. You see, at one time, Bob Saget was as much America's dad as Bill Cosby once was. His role of Danny Tanner on Full House and his time as the host of America's Funniest Home Videos led him to being perceived as a good-hearted comedian. But in fact, he wasn't. He actually hated those roles because he was a much dirtier comedian than anyone at the time realized. And when he broke his chains, yeah, the gloves were off, and he made people wonder how he could ever be Danny Tanner with a mouth like his. Which led us to the roast, which was not only headed up by his best friend and fellow Full House star John Stamos, but it had a who's who of critics, comics, friend of Saget, and more. And they ripped him a new one and loved every single minute of it. Speaking from personal experience, when Gilbert Gottfried got on stage and started his routine, I couldn't stop laughing. It hurt me because of how hard I was laughing. And yeah, there were plenty of Olsen twins jokes, and that made it all the funnier. Number 1, Charlie Sheen. I mean, is there really any other one that it could be here? The roast of Charlie Sheen was the perfect one for comedy and timing. The roast happened after his infamous battle with substance abuse and his Tiger Blood speech, as well as getting fired off of 2.5 Men. And if you look at the roasting party, you'll see a lot of big names: Shatner, Mike Tyson, Jeff Ross, and the whole thing was started off by funny man and creator Seth MacFarlane, who read a eulogy of Charlie Sheen to set the tone. And there was one rising star. That would be Amy Schumer. Amy Schumer's sly, assured first roast appearance seduces and stuns the crowd. Her line like, "You're like Bruce Willis. You were big in the 80s, and now your old slots being filled by Ashton Kutcher," is one of the best ever uttered during a roast, period. Anyway, the roast was everything you hoped it would be and more. If you weren't laughing during this, you must have been dead, just like Charlie Sheen's career. So what do you think? What do you think of these hilarious celebrity roasts? Do you agree with their rankings? Do you think that one of them should have been higher on the list? And do you think that another roast entirely should have replaced these ones? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on the channel.
A simple reminder on how to enter our brand new giveaway. We will be giving away either an iPhone X Max, the new iPad mini, or a MacBook Pro. It's really your choice. So be sure to leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter the giveaway. It's really that simple. Go for it.